fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
When to say no. How to get your life back. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. This is something that I have struggled with for years, probably ever since I entered the workforce. It's continually gotten worse as I started my own company. For any of you entrepreneurs and small business owners out there, anyone who's worked at a startup, you know how demanding it is on you and your calendar and just time, and it feels like there's not enough time for anything. Obviously, when you start throwing in family and kids, all of it just kind of keeps compounding. And yet I've continually gotten better at this as well. And I wanted to share a few things with you that have helped me big time, and also share some areas where I really struggled and probably, I would say, failed. And I'm doing this in particular because I have had so many conversations here over the past few months with friends, family, coworkers that have just been struggling with not enough time to do anything. There's no margin left. And quite honestly, they don't have much control over their lives, and they're doing a lot of things they don't really even want to be doing. And yes, there's always a time when that has to happen. None of us can just only do what we want to do 24/7. But at the same time, if you don't build some margin in and at some point learn to say no to some things, it'll absolutely not just burn you out, but it can cause health consequences. I mean, there's a lot of really bad things that can happen if you just keep saying yes to everything and never have time to enjoy yourself and to rest, etc. And Dan Kennedy, someone that I respect a lot, and I've read, I think, every one of his books and have seen him speak. He's just a really sharp guy in a lot of different areas. And one thing he said that I didn't understand this until I was probably 30, 32 when I read his book, and it was about time management, because I was struggling just getting all this stuff done. I was still fairly young in the big scheme of things and hadn't really fully matured yet in terms of, being a business operator and really just maximizing my time. And I just, to me, I had the mindset of, hey, if you weren't getting a lot of stuff done, if you weren't just hustle, then you were kind of lazy, right? And that's how I looked at myself. That's how I looked at other people. If I saw someone who was just kind of not working that hard or not working the same hours I was, in my head, at least at the time, I was just like, oh, they're lazy. And I couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, to me, how cool would it be if you only had to work 3 hours to have the same output as someone who worked 8 hours, just, doing all this stuff and, working on things that really didn't matter to get the same output. I'd take the 3 hours all day long. I think all of us would, yet so many of us get in this rut of just work, and we're trying to do so much stuff, and then balls start dropping a little bit here, and you get sloppy, and it's not fun. But anyhow, what Dan Kennedy said, and this is critical. If I wish I had understood this at a younger age, and it said, if you don't respect your own time, don't expect someone else to. So I'm going to repeat that. If you don't respect your own time, don't expect someone else to, or don't expect others to. And what that means, and it happened, to me, people would put stuff on my plate, at work, and then even in the home life, wife would ask me to do something, and there's certain things that you have to do, right? Always get that. But then on the social side and the friend stuff, people would invite me to stuff, and I'd feel like, an obligation to go. And there's this FOMO, the fear of missing out. And I would find myself back in the day in my early 30s, we'd say yes to everything. And, oh, there's a wedding here and a funeral here and just all these things. It's like, well, yeah, I don't want to let them down. And what will people think of me if I say no? And then it's like, oh man, what if we miss out? And what if all of our friends are there? And so I would just continually find myself saying yes to everything. And we're just constantly on the move, and calendar was always so packed. And, looking back, it was exciting and fun. It was also just super, super, super stressful. And I mean, health, like I said, health can suffer, business can suffer, job can suffer. And, you end up getting in this rut of just continual work and continual saying yes to things that you don't really want to do, and maybe not even the best use of your time. Then all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, where the heck did the time go? And what do I have to show for it? And so what I would encourage you to do is, one, use what I said earlier about if you don't respect your own time, don't expect someone else to. Start with yourself. We can't blame others. So we can't, I had to do all this stuff, or I got invited to all these parties, whatever. No, at some point you have the right to say no. It is your own life. And this is step one of getting your life back, is just saying no to things that you absolutely 100% don't want to do. And don't worry what other people think of you. I've literally said no to weddings. I've said no to funerals. I've just said, I don't want to go, and I'm not going to do it. And I purposely, and I work on this constantly, because it is really, really hard for me. I'll be honest with you. It's really, really tough to do this, because I have that FOMO. I don't want to miss out. I don't want to disappoint people either. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm just purposely creating margin in my calendar. I will never let my calendar, and everyone who works with me knows this. You think a CEO is, oh man, their calendar is packed. And yeah, there's stuff on my calendar every day. Rarely do I have a day that's just wide open, unless I'm going like, C12 or something, and doing like an event. But, for the most part, I have stuff in there, but it's never like back to back to back to back to back to back to back. That's just not even healthy. There's literally no margin, and you can't be your best. You can't give your best. You can't give all your attention just jumping off from one call to the next. I mean, all the best coaches and the CEOs that I've personally met, they're building in margin. And yeah, they are having to make quick decisions, and they are having to make a lot of decisions, and they are having to get involved in a lot of things at once. But at the same time, they're building in some margin to even go outside and take a walk. My buddy Kyle, I mean, multi-billion-dollar company he is the founder and CEO of, and that guy's got a ton of margin. And it wasn't, like that from day one. Obviously, there's always that first year or two where you're, as an entrepreneur, that's a whole different ballgame. You're having to put in the work, you having to grind. But still, even then, you're constantly saying, all right, what can I say no to? How can I get a little bit more control here? How can I build a little bit of margin? And I watch my buddy Tom, he's got a ton of margin. I mean, he'll take breaks and just, going 30-minute out in the boat, 30-minute jog, do push-ups, just something to get his mind off of work and to kind of clear his head and think about all the little things that he's already said yes to, think about things coming up, et cetera. But for me, that was just such a big one, to get kind of some control of my life back. And now I feel like I have more time than ever before to do things like, to me, I love reading. I've talked about this on a prior podcast. I truly enjoy sitting on the dock and reading, and I do that multiple times a week. And I'm more productive because of it when I get to take a little break. And then, and here's the sad part, right? Even some of you hearing this are probably like, oh man, that sounds kind of lazy, right? Because if you're like me, that's how I always thought. Well, man, if I'm not working, if I'm not just constantly, just boom, 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 going 100 miles an hour, then it's kind of lazy, and you're not really a hard worker. But that is so not true. And I think that's kind of step number 2, is getting that out of your head, that any sort of taking a break or reading, or heck, even taking a quick little 20-minute power nap is just laziness. That is not true. I love the fact Ronald Reagan was the only president that took a nap almost every day. He would just part of his calendar. And he's like, if I want to be my best, I like to have a little bit of sleep. And there's nights I don't get enough sleep, and I like to take a little 20-minute power nap. And a lot of people, poked fun at that and called Ronald Reagan lazy, and yet still here today, many, many decades later, he's still considered one of just the best overall presidents. No, none of them have been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but both parties agree he was a pretty good president and got a lot of good stuff done and had good public relations. I mean, he, it was a time where the country was more unified than it is today. I don't ever say it's ever perfect unified, but this is a guy that once again people kind of poked fun of as being one of the lazier presidents because he took a nap every day, and yet he was highly productive. So I tell you all that to say, look, if you're having this problem, and so many people are, like I said, I'm doing this podcast because I keep hearing about this over and over again from friends, even friends that I'm chatting to, friends that that are asking, me for advice. People I've talked to and interviewed, family members just said, I feel like I don't have time to do anything anymore. I don't even have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to literally do anything I want to do. That should be just an absolute red flag to say, all right, it's time to hit pause. It is time to look at your account. Where are you spending your time? So that's, obviously you need to look at that. All right, let's just assume we have 8 hours of sleep. There's going to be 8 hours in a bed. The rest of the time, where are we spending it? What is going on during that time frame? And then slowly start chunking out pieces that are not productive, that you don't feel like it's your calling, that you don't enjoy doing. And some are going to be easier than others. Some you can just swipe them off real quick. Some are going to, take some tough conversations with people or bosses or loved ones or people who might be counting on you. But at the same point, if you're running your life ragged and you don't have time to enjoy anything, and all of a sudden you wake up and a year has gone by, and you're like, what happened? I don't feel like I got anything done because you're running around in circles. That's not fair to you. It's not smart. It's not healthy. There's nothing good about that, obviously, but yet it happens to so many of us, right? And we're all just so busy being busybodies and doing all this little stuff, and yet very few of us really focus on a neat book I'm reading right now called The 4 Principles of Execution, called a wildly important goal. And the whole point of that book is, if just every 90 days you focused on one wildly important goal, so just 4 throughout the whole year. So let's just say this first quarter, it's going to be losing 10 pounds. And that's all you did. So every day, you're not focusing on 8 hours a day, but for 30 minutes a day, it's just part of, you're now building a routine. Essentially, you're building new muscle memory to do this one thing better until 90 days. You wake up, holy smokes, I lost the 10 pounds. And now now you've built in habits and you form some great things in your life that are hopefully going to continue to keep that weight off. And then you move on to WIG number 2, which is another wildly important goal. And so few of us do that because we do all this busybody stuff and we keep saying yes to all these little small things that don't really have a big impact in your life or even in the lives of others. And you're not respecting your own time. So other people are walking all over yours. And as they should, right? If you never set a boundary and someone's like, well, hey, yeah, man, so-and-so just keeps saying yes to all this stuff. Well, I guess they have the capacity to do it. At some point, no, put your foot down. Say, I can't do this. Find someone else to do it. Whether that's in family, right? Because my wife has had to do that, to me, where I assume she's got capacity. And at some point she's like, Joe, I literally don't have capacity for this. I need you to do this. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll find a way to make this happen. Or heck, we hired it out for certain things. Like for me was the pool. We have a pool. It's an old pool. I didn't want to spend a lot of money doing it. And that got to the point where it was constantly sucking up my time because that thing wasn't sucking the way it was supposed to and moving water through the pool because it is so old and the pipes are old. And I finally was like, you know what? I need to hire this out. And I'm telling you, like, I got so much of my time back. It's like a 11-foot deep pool. So it's super deep, meaning you got to clean it, even more. And all the algae builds up quicker because it's old. I was spending so much time doing this and I dreaded it, because especially here in Florida, it's just blazing hot and our pool's not screened in. I could go on and on. If you don't have a screened in pool here in Florida and you got trees all over it, which we do, it's constantly full of leaves. I mean, it was something I was having to do at least once, if not twice a week. And it was sucking up hours and hours of my time. And me just hiring that out, it actually didn't cost as much as I thought it would. It was like a game changer. It like freed me up. I created margin in my life. I learned how to say no to get control of some of my life back. And it's just small things like that. And that is a form of saying no, right? No, I'm not doing this stuff anymore. I'm going to hire this out. And obviously, it's impossible to do that for everything. But gosh, even we've hired someone to help pick up the kids because that was taking up a lot of my time and some of my meeting time. My wife couldn't do it anymore. I mean, just doing that small little thing on the pickup gave me so much time back. And by the time they get home and do some of the homework and stuff, now I can spend time with them and I'm not stressed out. They've gotten their stuff done. My wife's not stressed out. I mean, all those small things just help build more margin. And the irony is, yeah, it does cost some money to have, someone pick up your kids and do some of the homework with them. But at the same time, if I could be focused on my wildly important goals, the things that are the needle movers in my business, I can make 10x times what we're paying this person, right? And that's regardless if you own your business or if you're on a commission or what. But meaning the more time and focus you're putting in on things that you're truly great at and you truly enjoy doing, and take the money part out of it, you are going to thrive and you are going to succeed and you are going to move up and you're going to become more of an expert and you're just going to be happier and healthier in general. So, and let me tie this in with Unchurched, because you might be saying, hey, I haven't heard anything about church here. Here's the perfect example. A guy named Jesus, right? We have the Bible to tell us the story of Jesus. This guy who was a real person, right? Who did a lot of amazing miracles in a really short amount of time, mind you, right? I mean, he still was a boy. He, still was a teenager. And in most of everything we read about in the Bible, all these things that he did happened in just a few years. So imagine if you knew you only had a few years to get everything that you needed to do in a lifetime, you'd probably be in a little bit of a rush. You'd probably be having a really stacked calendar. You'd probably be sprinting to each assignment. Jesus did none of that. Think about it, right? There's not one period in the whole Bible, there's not one story where Jesus was in a rush. There's not one time where he sprinted anywhere. The dude walked, right? There's horses. There weren't obviously Teslas and fast cars back then, but there were horses. He could have taken a fast horse from city to city to go heal people. The dude walked. He was never once in a hurry. And so I think all of us should have the goal to live like Jesus, to love like Jesus. And I think all of us would probably be nodding our head right now. Yes, I do want to live like Jesus. I do want to love like Jesus. Well, here's your chance. The loving part is easy. That's something you could decide to do right now. You don't even have to cancel stuff on your calendar to do that. But the living part, so much of what he did and what he showed us, and I think what the Bible is even pointing back to is, hey, God has a plan. Jesus knew that God had a plan for him. He knew it was going to be perfect, and he knew he did not have to rush into it. He knew that he could trust his Father, that he could trust God, and he could do things on his own time. He could say no to things. He had plenty of margin. I mean, that guy, right? And I love watching the Chosen movie and stuff. You get to see, exactly what was happening. And if you haven't watched the movies, I highly recommend. I believe they're even free on Amazon and some other places. It's called Chosen. It's the best depiction of Jesus and his disciples and really just the stories of the Bible in a pretty fun and entertaining movie. And you could see, there was times where he put his feet up and was just chilling, right? And this was a guy who was going to change the world and knew it. He absolutely 100% knew it. And yet he wasn't in a rush to do anything. And so I think that's what I'll leave you with, because I think that's the most important part here is you can believe what I'm saying all day long and say, oh, cool, Joe did it. It might work for him. Maybe it won't. I don't know. Maybe it won't work for me. But look at Jesus. I mean, a person we're still talking about thousands of years later, right? Someone that I would bet the whole world probably knows who he is and has heard about things that he did throughout the Bible. Whether they believe in him or not is irrelevant. But someone who has a legacy like that, who did all of his work in just a few years and was never once in a rush. He focused on the wildly important goals, right? He knew what his goals were and what he had to get done, and he didn't let anything else get in the way. And he would quickly say no to things that didn't pertain to his goal and his mission, if you will. And he was quick to make the things happen that he needed to get happen, and not to be distracted by all the fluff and the whirlwind and all the stuff going around us all the time. So anytime you're getting in a rut, ask yourself, one, how do I create margin here? What can I say no to that I maybe don't want to do this weekend? What can I say no to that I don't want to do today, this week, whatever it is? And then all right, what would Jesus do? I mean, that's a pretty good question. What would Jesus do in this situation? And what is the big wildly important thing I could be doing right now that is going to leave a big impact, that is going to move the needle, that is going to have maybe people or a group or a company or whatever, a family or my own kids talking about, me a year, 2, 3, 4, 10, 50, 100 years later. Where can I really make an impact? Because that's where we should be spending our time. I know it's impossible to only spend your time on things like that, but if you think about it, we're all guaranteed to be off of this earth at some point, right? None of us know when that final day is, if you will, but we know it's a guarantee is that we are all going to pass away. So why not maximize that time? Why get so caught up in doing things that you really don't want to do, or that you don't feel called to do, or don't excite you, or even worse, take away from your priorities and take away from your health? So learn to say no. Do what Jesus would do. I hope this is helpful. I'm hoping it's reaching the right people. And I believe it's multiple people, not just one, because I just continually hear this over and over again, that people are just stressed out at a whole new level, and aren't enjoying life like they should. And so much of it is because there's just no margin, and we've gotten really bad about saying yes to everything, and afraid to saying no to things because of how we might look, or this FOMO, or whatever it might be. So I urge you just to try it. You'll be shocked at how much happier life will be when you have some time to go enjoy it. For me, like I said, I love to go. I'm going to go down there in just a little bit, and after this podcast, and just read a book for even just 15, 20 minutes. I'm not down there for hours taking a 5-hour siesta, but just that little time, it gets me clarity. It gets me excited to go back into my other work here at Salt Strong. So guys, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions or thoughts or things that you've done to help get a little bit more control back in your life, let me know. Shoot me an email, Joe, Joe, @saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.